How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome. It's another exciting hour of the Eric Erickson Show. I'll get to your phone calls this hour. The phone number is 877-973-7425 if you want to be on the program. As always, text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777 to get the live stream, the show notes, the podcast, and a whole lot more. We've got to talk about the government shutdown now. Why? Because we are rapidly approaching this shutdown, and the Democratic Party has kind of lost their minds when it comes to shutting down the government. It's something they have never done before. This will be the first time that the Democrats have decided they're going to be the ones to shut down the government. Now, you need to know that their gamble, their calculus is, and they've got a lot of legitimacy to it, is that the members of the press will blame the GOP for the Democrats. It is the Democrats who are openly telegraphing they're going to shut down the government, and yet you'll watch CNN and MSNBC, you'll read the New York Times and USA Today, and they'll be blaming the Republicans for the shutdown, not the Democrats. That's the way this works. We all understand it. But here's the thing. The Republicans have a very simple talking point. The Democrats say they're going to shut down the government unless the government funds health care for illegal aliens. There is no lie in that statement. Democrats can say it's more expansive than that, but they can't say it's not that, because it is that. But there's a funny little catch. Let me play you first. Bang, bang, fang, fang, Eric Swalwell.
I'm not comfortable with this Republican tyrannical government. So I'm not co-signing on that, Kate, and I don't think anyone should. Now, if they are going to, as I said, change their deportation policy and not get rid of innocent Americans who are contributing to our economy, if they're going to lower health care costs and not get rid of the subsidies and Medicare cuts that they put in place, and if they are going to, as I referred to earlier, put back in place cancer research, as 40% of Americans are going to find out this year that they have a cancer diagnosis, I would sign off on that. But why would we want to continue to be, co-signees on this madness that is hurting our friends and neighbors and making us look less and less like America? This is a Republican-run government. They have the White House, the House, and the Senate. They've had plenty of months to put forward legislation where they could work with us to get this passed. They waited till the very last minute. Donald Trump set a meeting, canceled a meeting, reset a meeting. This is entirely on them. And as I said, I don't want to be a co-signee to this tyranny.
You got that? You got that? Little Eric Swalwell's position is, I don't want to be a co-signee to this tyranny, but if they pay for health care for illegal immigrants, all right, I'll fund the tyranny. That's the wild world that we're in with the Democrats. Here is Hakeem Jeffries, the leader of the House Democrats.
Well, Donald Trump has taken a go-it-alone approach from the very beginning of this Congress. And unfortunately, my colleagues on the Republican side of the aisle have behaved not as a separate and co-equal branch of government and a check and balance on an out-of-control executive branch, but as a consistent rubber stamp for Donald Trump's extreme agenda. Our view going into the meeting is that we want to find bipartisan common ground to find a spending agreement that avoids a government shutdown and actually meets the needs of the American people in terms of their health, their safety, and their economic well-being.
You got that? You got that? Donald Trump's going along. I mean, this is the wild thing. And by the way, this is more on the House or on the Senate side, because the House guys, they can all vote against it. Every member of the House Democrats can vote against this budget or continuing resolution, and the government continues to be funded. But on the Senate side, the rhetoric is just as extreme. The rhetoric is just as bizarre. This is an authoritarian tyranny, and I will not fund this authoritarian tyranny. But if they're willing to fund health care for illegal immigrants, I'm all in. This is how badly they've boxed themselves in on these issues. They are totally willing to fund the tyranny so long as the illegal immigrants get their health care coverage. Now, the National Press Corps, for its part, is doing profiles of Stephen Miller and Russell T. Vought. It's almost like the National Press Corps is operating as an assassination network. Hey, crazy progressives. Crazy progressive, this is the guy you want to target. This is the guy you want to target. You want to go after him. Yes, we're going to give you enough details about him and his life and his family. You'll be able to figure out where he lives. You'll be able to target him. This guy right here. This is the one to blame. This is him. I mean, that's essentially what the National Press Corps is doing. Let's do this profile, and we'll give you all the little details and generalities so you, progressive nut job, can figure out where he lives and eliminate him. The National Press Corps is playing into the left-wing assassination network at this point. And they're going overboard blaming my buddy Russ Vought for this. All of these profiles, the man who would shut down the government. Russ Vought's not the man who shut down the government. That's Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer is the one who's decided to shut it down. They're already calling it the Schumer shutdown. That's right, the Schumer shutdown. And I don't know that it's going to actually work for them, but they're doing their best to do whatever they can to make sure that there's someone on the left to target. Y'all, the wild part here is that while the Democrats think they can get away with this, they're not going to be able to. Because the Republican messaging here is very straightforward. We want to fund the government without doing new things. The Democrats want to fund the government while doing the new thing of giving health care to illegal immigrants. The Democrats are going to have to overcome the talking point. And again, I got to tell you, I have this theory that the Democrats have for so long benefited from a sympathetic National Press Corps, it's made them very lazy. And the sympathies for the National Press Corps don't exist and can't exist at the level they once did when the National Press Corps is not as influential as it once was. There are story after story after story out there about how every American gets their news from different people now. You get your news, hopefully all of you, from me, but nonetheless, you got news sources that you read that I don't read. I've got news sources that I read that you don't read. You've got Substackers you subscribe to. I've got Substackers I subscribe to. You've got news channels on YouTube that you get your news from. I have YouTube channels where I get my recipes from. We all listen to different stuff. We're hyper-fractured. And the Democrats are still convinced that because they own the voices at CNN and MSNBC and the New York Times, the Washington Post, and USA Today, because the prominent editorialists are on their side, somehow or another, they are able to dominate the narrative. And that was true 10 years ago. But it's not true anymore. It's just no longer the case. The Democratic Party in the United States is so embedded with the National Press Corps, and most Americans have moved on from the National Press Corps. So many of the major media outlets now are paid subscription services, and most Americans aren't going to pay to subscribe to these news outlets. So they get their news from elsewhere. And oftentimes that news comes from social media, which tends to lean to the right, which tends to elevate voices that are antithetical to the Democratic Party. And so the Democrats are running into a narrative shifting world where many people are getting their news from elsewhere while the Democrats still coddle the New York Times and CNN and MSNBC. So you're absolutely right, Democrats. MSNBC, CNN, the New York Times, Washington Post, they're all going to take your side. They're all going to blame the Republican Party. They're all going to say this is Donald Trump's fault. They're all going to say it. But most Americans aren't going to get their news from there. Most Americans are going to get their news from elsewhere. And many of the people they're going to get their news from will be openly and truthfully mocking the Democrats for deciding that they will fund the tyrant Donald Trump and his authoritarian, tyrannical regime so long as health care is provided to illegal aliens. That's Eric Swalwell's position. You heard the audio. If they'll do this, or they'll do this, or they'll do this, and one of them was defund ICE, and one of them is provide health care to illegal aliens. Well, it's a totalitarian regime, and I'm not going to fund it. But if they give health care to illegals, sure, I'll fund it. I'll go along with it. That's not a very compelling narrative for the Democrats. And the other problem for the Democrats, too, is that their base wants them to fight. So we may look at this wild card scenario here now where the Democrats can't in the Senate give up the filibuster. The Democrats can't reopen the government once it shuts down. And you know who that helps? Us on our side. I mean, Social Security checks are going to get delayed, and the Democrats are going to get blamed headed into an election season. Our soldiers and sailors and airmen, they're not going to get paid, and the Democrats are going to get blamed for that. But you're still probably going to be able to go to the Smithsonian and the parks because Trump won't make it painful for you. You'll still be able to fly. You'll still be able to get your prostate exam from the TSA. All the things that you normally do in normal life, you're still going to be able to do. And people are going to not really notice the government shutdown, except the senior citizens who are the most likely to vote. And who do you think they're going to blame? The Republicans or the Democrats who are fighting over health care for illegal aliens? The Republicans or the Democrats who are fighting over an expansion of government and not just a continuing resolution to fund the current government? Who do you think they're really going to blame? Yeah, They'll hear the blame from the media. Absolutely. They'll hear it's all the Republicans' fault. Absolutely. But are they going to believe it? I actually have a hard time believing they're going to believe it. And in the process, the circle of jerks of the national press that defends the Democrats will actually be making matters worse for them because they'll be discrediting themselves more thoroughly. They'll be hurting the Democratic Party more thoroughly, and they'll be alienating themselves from their listeners and viewers even more thoroughly. While the Democrats are on the side yet again of the criminals and the illegal aliens. Just think about this polling the other day that I talked to you about from Reuters, where the president is ahead of the Democrats by like 20 points on the issue of immigration. And the Democrats' position will be fund health care for illegal aliens and defund ICE. So the president beats the Democrats by 20 points. With independent voters, it's like 15 points. The president is beating the Democrats by 15 points with independent voters on the issue of immigration. And the Democrats are willing to shut down the government unless the government defunds ICE and funds health care for illegal aliens. How does the math work in this? The progressive base of the Democratic Party has become so aligned and alienated from mainstream America, Main Street America, that the Democrats are held hostage by a bunch of cranks and crazy people on the left who smell like patchouli and live in their parents' basement and get online on Blue Sky and are convinced in their little bubble that they reign supreme. They are the majority when they're actually not. So the Democrats will rush headlong into a government shutdown. At this point, it doesn't look like there's a way to stop it. At this point, it doesn't look like there is any way for the Democrats to stop the shutdown because they've all staked out a position on, I will not fund the totalitarianism of Donald Trump unless he funds illegal alien health care. And he's not going to fund illegal alien health care So now the bigger question is, ultimately, you know and I know, enough Democrats are going to cave to reopen the government. They're absolutely going to cave. They're absolutely going to ultimately cut a deal of some kind to reopen the government. What will the progressive base do to the Democrats when they have reopened the government that they said is a totalitarian regime? The revolution ultimately always consumes the revolutionaries when you have a progressive revolution.
Would you guys consider anything less than a championship to be a failure from this year?
I wouldn't say anything is a failure, especially because we all grow every day. Obviously, the goal is a championship. There's no doubt in that, and that's the goal. We want to win a championship.
I'm Christina Williams, host of the podcast, In Case You Missed It with Christina Williams. The WNBA playoffs are here, and I've got the inside scoop on everything from key matchups and standout players to the behind-the-scenes moments you won't find anywhere else.
It's really, really hard to be the champions, but we have to remember how it feels and embrace the new challenge that we have.
For all the biggest stories in women's basketball, plus exclusive interviews with the game's brightest stars.
So to be here, I think it's one that we definitely don't take for granted. But we also know, that's just one stop along the way, and we're hoping to, make a run.
So listen to In Case You Missed It with Christina Williams, an iHeart Women's sports production in partnership with Deep Blue Sports and Entertainment on iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Greetings, conversationalists. It is Eric Erickson here, and the phone number is 877-973-7425. The bottom of the hour, stay tuned. Those of you on the phones, I'll take your calls. This is a short segment, so I can't right now. What I can, however, do is tell you that I didn't get to watch the end of the Ryder Cup yesterday because I was at the ER with my wife most of the day with her poor broken foot. She fell down the steps trying to get to church yesterday. Not a major break, no cash, just this thick orthopedic shoe she's got to wear with crutches. But I saw some of the video of the fans, and I saw a number of the professional golfers out there saying how we got to do something about sports fans, particularly in golf. Somebody threw a beer at Rory McIlroy's wife. The Americans were chanting F you to Rory McIlroy, who, when they won, trotted around the green, pointing at the American fans, saying F you and F you and F you and F you back at them. The players, the American and the European players, were all complaining about the boorish nature of the fans. There's one thing about having some witty lines and yelling, but at this point, it's just kind of abusive, rude behavior, and it's not just them. I took my son to a Braves game on Saturday night. We sat in a good section up close and didn't particularly worry about it, but I have been with friends who took young kids to sporting events, and the people around us uttering profanity and stuff. It's kind of a problem. It's getting really, really out of hand. How obnoxious sports fans are becoming. There were some sports where it was kind of tolerated, but it spilled over into lots of aspects, and that's a failure of humanity, I guess. So anyway, now I got to tell you about Old Glory Bank. My bank is a bank willing to be your bank, fastest growing bank in the country right now. Great bank. They're headquartered in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. They are a bank by conservatives for conservatives. They were started in Oklahoma City, and they grew nationally. They were inspired to really get going because of the debanking trends in the country of conservatives. Progressive activists have been buying up the shares of banks and then using their shareholder clout to get banks to, for example, prohibit you from purchasing a gun with your debit card, or turning off the accounts of gun stores or conservative organizations. And so that's why Old Glory Bank got started. They were opposed to that. They're by conservatives for conservatives. They'd love to have you on board. All you have to do is go to oldglorybank.com/Eric. You can fill out a form and get your account. That's how I did it, although I went to oldglorybank.com, not oldglorybank.com/Eric. You go to oldglorybank.com/Eric. You find out more, and then you fill out the form. It takes less than 8 minutes. You can get yourself a checking account, a savings account. They do mortgages, car loans, the works. They're a real bank. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Terms and conditions apply.
Would you guys consider anything less than a championship to be a failure from this year?
I wouldn't say anything is a failure, especially because we all grow every day. Obviously, the goal is a championship. There's no doubt in that, and that's the goal. We want to win a championship.
I'm Christina Williams, host of the podcast, In Case You Missed It with Christina Williams. The WNBA playoffs are here, and I've got the inside scoop on everything from key matchups and standout players to the behind-the-scenes moments you won't find anywhere else.
It's really, really hard to be the champions, but we have to remember how it feels and embrace the new challenge that we have.
For all the biggest stories in women's basketball, plus exclusive interviews with the game's brightest stars.
So to be here, I think it's one that we definitely don't take for granted. But we also know, that's just one stop along the way, and we're hoping to, make a run.
So listen to In Case You Missed It with Christina Williams, an iHeart Women's sports production in partnership with Deep Blue Sports and Entertainment on iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, America. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. If you want to be on the program, you're very welcome to call in. Also, don't forget, if you text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777, you get the live stream, the show notes, the podcast, so much more. Let's go to the phones. Brad in Tulsa, Oklahoma, you're going to be up first today. Welcome.
Hello, Eric. I just wanted to I listen to your show every day during my lunch hour, and I just wanted to make a correction as far as the shutdown. The shutdown won't affect Social Security checks. I was on disability through two major shutdowns, and I was the primary caregiver for my mother, who was on Social Security during those two major shutdowns. And Social Security checks are never delayed during a shutdown. They're covered under mandatory spending.
You know what? I'm Googling, and yeah, I'm glad you called and corrected me, because for the longest time, I have thought that Social Security payments would be shut down. So that's good to hear. So even the seniors won't be. So who's going to be affected here? The military and government workers are about it. I got a buddy of mine who's a federal judge. I feel bad for him. He won't get paid, but yeah, okay. So Social Security recipients get paid. The Social Security disability gets paid. The TSA gets paid. The FAA gets paid. So not a whole lot of people other than Democratic constituencies, Brad, who are going to get affected. Thanks for that, because I literally have thought that Social Security checks could get held up, but nope. I'm Googling and see this as well. That, as a matter of fact, that used to be, okay. Because the big government shutdowns were during the Clinton era. And so, yes, during the Clinton era, yes, a government shutdown would deny that the could be prohibited. However, typically the government does process those checks. So there you go. Okay, so obviously during the Clinton shutdown, that's why I'm thinking of it. Clinton tried to hold Social Security checks. But they have otherwise, in 20 government shutdowns, continued to go out. So that's good to know. 877-973-7425. Dave, you're up next. Welcome to the show. Hey, Dave.
Hello.
Welcome.
Yes, sir. First
What's
time
going
caller.
on, Dave? Well, welcome to the show, Dave. Glad to have you with me.
Thank you. I wanted to let you know on the VA that my daughter works for them for about the last 10 years, and that they have finally, Trump has finally fired the union. And now the people have to show up for work mandatory, or they can be lose their jobs, where they were protected by the unions before.
Interesting. Well, that's good to hear. There needs to be some level of accountability.
Yeah, because when she started, they had nurses that had been gone for 10 years, and the union wouldn't let them fire them unless they sent a registered letter to them. And they didn't know where they were because they had been gone for so long. So they just left them on the payroll to take spots that, that they needed people for.
Well, and again, this is, and Dave, thanks very much for the call. This is part of the problem here is there's a lack of accountability when you get into these sorts of situations. And the unions make it very hard to push people out the door. They protect a lot of people who don't need to be protected. And if we're going to clean up the government, we've got to clean up issues like that. Listen, whether you like public or whether you like private sector unions or not, even Franklin Delano Roosevelt was opposed to public sector unions. And the fact that we have gotten to the point where we have public sector unions in this country, we've got to undo that, I think. Now, speaking of progressivism run amok, have you heard about the school superintendent in Iowa? In the afternoons, when the show is done, I record a small podcast. It is never more than 10 minutes, almost always between 5 and 7 minutes. And it's just the 4 things you need to know in the afternoon, because the show is done at 3 p.m. and inevitably stuff is breaking like 2:50 to 3 o'clock. And I try to put that stuff together in a very short podcast for you that you can subscribe to. So you've listened to the show, and now here are the 4 things. The news has shifted in the afternoon. Here are the 4 things you got to know before you get home in the afternoon, and takes 5 minutes for you to listen to. You can text Eric to 33777 and get that podcast. And on Friday, I recorded the podcast. I left the office. I pulled into the gym. I had my miserable workout. I'm still sore from it. And I made it home by 4:15 p.m. And at 4:22 p.m., I got a text message from a friend of mine about Ian Andre Roberts. Ian Andre Roberts, if you haven't heard the story, was the Des Moines, Iowa School District Superintendent. I say was because he's been arrested. Do you know why he's been arrested? Well, he's been a long-time fugitive illegal alien. That's why he was arrested. Yes, a long-time fugitive illegal alien. Ian Andre Roberts became the Des Moines, Iowa School District Superintendent. The state of Iowa has now revoked his license. Before that, he was a school superintendent elsewhere in the country. He's got 2 weapons violations. What's so interesting is that Ian Andre Roberts, as the superintendent of schools in Iowa, in Des Moines, decided to get rid of the rule prohibiting felons from taking jobs within the school system in the name of diversifying the staff. It appears as well he has claimed multiple degrees from institutions without having done the work to get those degrees. And the Des Moines School Board hired him in a closed-door meeting without public input. And one of the people who was in charge of the hiring was, well, a Obama appointee, a senior Obama appointee. So, interestingly enough, he is born in Georgetown, Ghana, received a bachelor's degree from Coppin State University in Baltimore, Maryland, where it appears he might have actually served or voted. He was on the voter rolls, even though he's not an American citizen. He got a master's degree from St. John's University and a second master's degree from McDonough School of Business at Georgetown University. He allegedly went to the MBA program at MIT, but didn't get a degree there. He attended Morgan State University, but didn't report being awarded any degrees, and got an online doctorate in education with a focus on urban educational leadership from Trident University. I don't even know what Trident University is. Let's go down the rabbit hole, the Wikipedia rabbit hole here. Trident University is a private, for-profit online university based in Chandler, Arizona, a member of the American Intercontinental University System, and accredited by the Higher Learning Commission, owned by the Perdoceo Education Corporation, offering 5 doctorate degree programs, 8 master's programs, and 8 bachelor's programs. Founded in 1998. I have no idea other than they're an online school, and he apparently got his online doctorate there. Now, there are, you should note, disputes as to the legitimacy of his degrees, but that's okay. By the way, he competed in the 2000 Summer Olympics in Sydney, Australia, where he came in next to last place in a preliminary heat. Well, he let his visa lapse. In 2022, he pled guilty and paid a fine of $100 plus court costs for having had a loaded gun in his vehicle during a deer hunting trip. ICE said that Roberts had been detained in Des Moines, Iowa. Say there's a final order for removal had been issued for his removal in May of 2024. He fled from a traffic stop, then abandoned his school-issued vehicle. ICE said they found in his possession a loaded handgun, $3,000 in cash, and a fixed-blade hunting knife. The school district says they had no knowledge of the 2024 order for removal and that Roberts had undergone a comprehensive background check and completed an I-9 and was authorized to work. Now they put him on administrative leave. Now, here's the thing. I'm reading you this background from Wikipedia. What's notable is how Wikipedia has become so politicized that a lot of this stuff may not actually be legit. Some of it might be spin by people who are upset with ICE. The Des Moines Register has a background piece on him after he was arrested. The associate superintendent, Matt Smith, will serve as the interim superintendent. The Department of Homeland Security says there was a final order of removal. He overstayed his visa. He spent formative years in Brooklyn. He's married and has 4 dogs. He's the first person of color, don't you love the phrasing, first person of color to serve as the school superintendent. And here is the larger point. They advanced him for diversity causes, and they did it behind closed doors. The good white people of Des Moines put this black man in charge because they wanted a diversity hire for a very diverse school district, the most diverse school district in Iowa. That's what they did. And that's why they did it. That's just the truth. You may be mad at me for saying that, but the left has a habit of doing this. The very same leftists who are outraged about his deportation are cheering on Assata Shakur, better known as Joanne Deborah Byron. Joanne Deborah Byron was a communist member of the Black Liberation Army who murdered a police officer, Werner Forster, during a shootout in 1973. She escaped from prison and fled to Cuba, where she took refuge with the Communist Party of Cuba. She was granted political asylum there. She died at age 78, late last week. Assata Shakur robbed a church once. In the name of socialism, I'm not making this up. This sounds like the punchline of a joke, and it's real. She robbed a church holding a priest at gunpoint, and in the name of socialist solidarity, stole the money from the offering plates that was actually from that offering designated to feed the poor of the local community, and she used it for personal gain. She was charged with first-degree murder, assault and battery against a police officer, and more. She was sentenced to life in prison and escaped. Members of the Democratic Party in Congress are mourning her loss. I'm not making that up. A number of progressive members of Congress put up tweets mourning her death. She's a murderer of police officers. She murdered a police officer and fled to communist Cuba. She murdered a police officer She robbed a church, and the Democratic Party members are mourning her loss. Now, here's the point here. If she were a Republican, CNN's Manu Raju would be on Capitol Hill shoving microphones and cameras in the faces of Republicans, asking if they are denouncing Republican members supporting a cop killer. But because she's a progressive and Democrats are the ones mourning this cop killer, Manu Raju is nowhere on Capitol Hill with a TV camera and microphone demanding that Democrats affirm whether or not they support this. Republicans are always held to that standard. Democrats are never held to that standard. It is a measure of the bias of the press of what they choose not to cover. And the measure of the biases of CNN and elsewhere is that they chose not to cover Democratic members of Congress mourning the loss of a cop killer who took shelter and haven with communist Cuba. They've completely chosen to ignore a story that if she were a Republican, they would be going wall-to-wall coverage with. You got to understand, big biases in the press oftentimes are about what they choose not to cover, not what they choose to cover.
Would you guys consider anything less than a championship to be a failure from this year?
I wouldn't say anything is a failure, especially because we all grow every day. Obviously, the goal is a championship. There's no doubt in that, and that's the goal. We want to win a championship.
I'm Christina Williams, host of the podcast, In Case You Missed It with Christina Williams. The WNBA playoffs are here, and I've got the inside scoop on everything from key matchups and standout players to the behind-the-scenes moments you won't find anywhere else.
It's really, really hard to be the champions, but we have to remember how it feels and embrace the new challenge that we have.
For all the biggest stories in women's basketball, plus exclusive interviews with the game's brightest stars.
So to be here, I think it's one that we definitely don't take for granted. But we also know, that's just one stop along the way, and we're hoping to, make a run.
So listen to In Case You Missed It with Christina Williams, an iHeart Women's sports production in partnership with Deep Blue Sports and Entertainment on iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Greetings. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. I have news for you. Only if you live in Great Britain. The National Health Service in the United Kingdom now wants you to know that first cousin marriage is linked to, and I quote, stronger extended family support systems and economic advantages. Now, your kid may be born with an arm coming out of his head and other things related to incest, but the UK so now overwhelmed with immigrants from the Middle East and Africa, and Pakistan, by the way, where marrying your first cousin is acceptable. They're now changing up their guidance. Now, this is from the London Telegraph. The NHS has been urged to apologize for publishing guidance extolling the benefits of first cousin marriages, despite the risk of birth defects. Richard Holden, a Tory MP, told the Daily Mail on Sunday our NHS should stop taking the knee to damaging and oppressive cultural practices. The Conservatives want to see an end to cousin marriage as a backdoor to immigration too, but Labour are deaf to these sensible demands. Marrying a first cousin is legal in the UK, but it increases the risk of children inheriting genetic conditions. Health issues such as sickle cell disease and cystic fibrosis are more likely to be carried or contracted in children with parents who are closely related. Cultures that encourage first cousin marriage have also been accused of oppressing women and being used as a tool to suppress personal freedom. They literally, in the UK, I had no idea it's legal to marry your first cousin of the UK. That explains so much about the UK, doesn't it? Marmite and other things. It's not good. It is not a good thing at all to do. But in the UK, they are too worried about offending immigrants from Africa and the Middle East to stop it. Just another reason we don't have a problem like they do in this country. Thank God, at least not yet. And, Americans for Prosperity is advancing common sense conservative reforms to keep us, free and sane. And I sincerely hope you might consider joining them at afpvolunteer.com. Now, it's not just political action, however. You can also, if you go to AFP Volunteer, sign up and take a step for freedom in your community. They want to get 250,000 of us taking one step for freedom in each of our communities. And if you do that, well, guess what? You really do improve our communities around the country in time for our 250th anniversary as a nation. So go to afpvolunteer.com to sign up today. AFPvolunteer.com. Sign up with Americans for Prosperity and be engaged in your community, advancing common sense conservative solutions, and also fighting for freedom in your community, taking a small step in your community, me and mine, you and yours, and we all advance freedom in this country. When we come back, we have to shift gears again and get into the socialist takeover of New York City. It is on the verge of happening, even as Mayor Eric Adams has dropped out of the race for New York City mayor.